Every year, the Irish government typically release three legislative programmes. The spring session, which covers the period from January to April, the summer session, May to July, and the autumn session, September to December. A legislative programme is simply a document that outlines the proposed bills that the Irish government wishes to draft, progress or enact during the year, and includes sections such as legislation for priority publication, legislation for priority drafting, etc. As we speak, the government are likely finalising their autumn legislative programme, which will be released in or about the 15th of September, just before the Dáil resumes on the 17th of September, following their 2 months of summer break. In advance of the release of the autumn legislative programme, I believe now is a good time to review the most concerning aspects of the summer legislative programme, which was published on the 29th of April 2025, in order that we can easily identify any changes in the upcoming programme, which will be released in the next number of days. In this regard, I will be focusing on proposed laws that could significantly impact the civil liberties, human rights and personal freedoms of Irish citizens over the coming months, if the government are successful in having these laws passed by the Oireachtas. The summer legislative programme includes 23 priority bills for publication, 28 bills for drafting and many others in progress. Among these, several raise serious concerns about privacy, freedom and individual rights. So next we will review the most controversial proposals and what they could mean for you and your family over the coming years. 1. The Defence Amendment Bill. This bill aims to remove the triple lock safeguard, which requires the approval of three separate bodies, namely the government, the Dáil and the UN, before members of the Irish Defence Forces can be deployed abroad. By removing the triple lock, the government could deploy troops overseas with less oversight, raising serious concerns about Ireland's neutrality, a cornerstone of our foreign policy. Critics argue that this will erode democratic accountability, as it reduces parliamentary and international checks on military decisions, potentially entangling Ireland in conflicts against public will. In this regard, it is worth noting that the Irish government does not intend to put the removal of the triple lock to the people in a referendum. 2. The Garda Síochána Recording Devices Amendment Bill. Now, in 2023, the Irish government enacted the Garda Síochána Recording Devices Act 2023 to allow the Gardaí to use recording devices such as body-worn cameras, CCTV and automatic number plate recognition data for preventing, investigating or prosecuting crime. At the time, it was decided not to include provision on the use of facial recognition technology due to concerns from the public regarding mass surveillance, discrimination and privacy violations. Fast forward 2 years, and now the Irish government intends to amend this 2023 law to now introduce facial recognition technology for retrospective searches of legally held images for serious offences. As I said earlier, this new proposal revisits a controversial idea dropped from the 2023 Act due to public outcry over privacy violations, with critics warning that facial recognition technology will most likely lead to an abuse of power in order to silence political dissent, while also risking mass surveillance, misidentification and the creation of a chilling effect on freedom of expression. 3. The International Protection Bill. This bill is required to implement the EU Migration and Asylum Pact, which the Irish government voted to opt Ireland into in July 2024, irrespective of the clear and significant public opposition to this measure, which mainly centres around concerns regarding sovereignty, the capacity to manage increased migration, and the fact that Ireland will lose the right to control its own borders. 4. The EU Deforestation Regulation Bill. This regulation is set to apply from December 2025 and is intended to enforce EU Regulation 23/1115, which stipulates that products sold in the EU cannot contribute to deforestation, noting that this bill places significant new compliance burdens on Irish farmers, requiring them to prove that their supply chains are deforestation free. Now, for small farmers, which most farmers in Ireland are, who are already struggling with increased costs. This will mean further financial strain and bureaucratic overload, with critics arguing that this regulation will infringe on economic freedoms and will most likely impose disproportionate costs and harm on rural communities, limiting their right to earn a living without excessive regulation. 5. The Interception of Postal Packets and Telecommunications Regulation Amendment Bill. This proposed bill would mark a significant shift from Ireland's current surveillance laws, which only allows the Garda to intercept physical mail through postal services and telecommunication messages such as voicemails and text messages. The proposed amendment to the current telecommunications law is intended to allow the Garda to intercept internet-based communications, such as video calls through the likes of Skype or Zoom, emails, social media messages, messaging apps like WhatsApp and Signal, as well as any other cloud-based services, including messaging apps that are encrypted. Arguments against the introduction of this law include the fact that this may lead to widespread surveillance of Irish citizens, infringing on the fundamental human right to privacy, which will have a chilling effect on freedom of expression and personal autonomy. 6. The Public Justice Public Order Amendment Bill. Now, this bill ironically seeks to empower the Garda to order the removal of face coverings during public order incidents, noting that the Public Order Act has and continues to be one of the most abused pieces of law in Irish history. The reason this proposed bill is ironic is because just 4 years ago, the government, through an act of fascism, dictated that citizens must wear face coverings in order to access goods and services, failing which they were ejected from businesses, arrested, detained, and in some cases imprisoned. 7. Hate speech laws. Finally, while not explicitly listed in the summer legislative programme, it appears that the Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan, intends to revisit the issue of introducing hate speech laws in Ireland. I say this because on the 15th of July 2025, TD Pádraig Rice asked the Minister for Justice what actions were being taken to combat, in inverted commas, extreme hate speech in Ireland, in response to which Jim O'Callaghan stated, "We have committed in the programme for government to introducing amendments to modernise the 1989 Act in relation to incitement to hatred offences, particularly in the context of modern online communications." As I said, as matters currently stand, amending the Prohibition of Incitement to Hatred Act is not listed in the summer legislative programme, so this is a space to watch. In conclusion, for anybody willing to see, it's crystal clear that the Irish government wish to cultivate a new climate of strict obedience and conformity through legislation. In this regard, they will expand their programme of behavioural science, which will involve applying psychological and behavioural principles to manipulate your obedience by presenting these proposed laws as measures to keep you safe, just as they did with COVID-19. The core feature of a republic is to promote individual liberty. However, these proposed laws could genuinely reshape the balance between state power and individual freedoms in Ireland, from reduced military oversight jeopardising Ireland's neutrality, to mass surveillance, to increased migration, to the further erosion of free speech. That is, unless you say enough is enough.